Earning 100,000 points sounds great, but what does that mean in terms of actual value? What are 100,000 points worth anyway? Travel rewards, including hotel points and airline miles, are a form of currency. But unlike traditional forms of currency like a US dollar, a yen, or a peso, it can be a lot tougher to quantify the value of a travel reward. Now, NerdWallet has taken on the task and has analyzed thousands of price points to find out the value of your points. But the reality is, it's not something we all agree on. Let me tell you how NerdWallet decides on the value of your travel points and miles, and how you can decide what they're worth for yourself. For starters, I want to acknowledge that not all points are created equal. A point earned in the Hilton Honors program is not necessarily the same as a point in the Marriott Bonvoy program. Likewise, a Delta Sky Mile is not necessarily worth the same as a United Mileage Plus mile. Every year, NerdWallet analyzes about 24 airline, hotel, and credit card loyalty programs to determine the value of a point or mile within each program. NerdWallet looks at thousands of travel bookings using either cash or miles and directly calculates the results. To determine their value, NerdWallet picked the 75th percentile value rather than the average or median, so for every 4 searches, we picked the one that offered the highest value. We believe this reflects how travelers shop for reward bookings, which is by comparing cash and point redemptions across several dates. NerdWallet reevaluates these programs every year, and we will find that occasionally the value of the points do fluctuate year by year. Generally speaking, a point tends to be worth somewhere between 1 and 2 cents each, but there are outliers. For example, generally speaking, the World of Hyatt tends to have really valuable points, and NerdWallet usually says that a World of Hyatt point is worth more than 2 cents. In contrast, you look at points in something like the Hilton Honors program, and NerdWallet typically finds that their points are worth less than 1 cent. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that Hilton or Hyatt points are better than the other. It simply comes down to how easy they are to earn and redeem. So you look at a Hyatt point that's ultra valuable, it's also a lot harder to earn Hyatt points. You'll have to do a lot more spending at Hyatt hotels to earn those points. Typically, their credit card offers won't be as generous in terms of the points that they give away. But it also means that it can cost a lot less money in terms of points to actually book a Hyatt hotel room. So you might see a Hyatt hotel room listed at 20,000 Hyatt points, and then you look over at the Hilton Honors program, an equivalent quality hotel in that program might cost something like 150,000 points. That really comes down to the fact that in the Hilton Honors program, it's pretty easy to earn points, and it's also a lot more expensive to redeem them. Visit nerdwallet.com for the latest valuations of what points and miles in your travel loyalty program are worth. NerdWallet's also got handy calculator tools for each program where you can input how many points or miles you have, what program you're looking at, and NerdWallet will spit out our analysis of what we think your points are worth. Now, I told you about NerdWallet's valuation of how it comes to deciding what your points are worth, but plenty of people have their own ways of deciding what their points are worth, and they can be perfectly valid as well. One of the easiest ways to do this calculation is if your travel loyalty program allows you to exchange your points or miles for cash. Some programs offer this option, and typically when they do, you can exchange your points at a ratio of 1 point to 1 cent. If that's the case, then this is a pretty easy calculation that you can make on your own. Other people calculate the work involved in getting those points. After all, points don't just magically appear in your points bank account. You have to spend money to earn points. This can mean spending money in travel loyalty programs like at that hotel or on airfare. It can be spending money on travel branded credit cards or hitting that sign-up bonus on that credit card. You might factor in the cost to earn those points in valuing their worth. The real question, though, that you're probably asking is, did you get a good value on your points redemption? You might be sitting at the computer screen right now looking at a reservation that you want to make in cash, and you're wondering, is it better to make this thing in points? Well, luckily, NerdWallet's calculators can make it really easy. Simply enter how many points or miles it'll take to book that reservation, and NerdWallet will tell you what those points and miles are actually worth. Then you can compare that to the cash price and see, are you getting a good deal? If the value of the points is a lot less than the cash price, you know you're getting a great deal. But even if the value of the points is higher than the cash price, that doesn't necessarily mean you're getting a bad deal. Generally speaking, NerdWallet recommends that you spend down your points on travel and save your cash. After all, cash is something that you can use for emergencies. It can pay your rent. It can pay for an emergency travel fund. And the thing is, points just don't do the same. You can invest your cash, you can save your cash, it can accrue interest, but points don't do any of those things. Points only accrue virtual dust. Especially if you're looking at a redemption where, let's say, there's a hotel room that's cost $300. NerdWallet says the points value is $330. Just because you book that room on points doesn't mean that you lost out on $30 worth of value, especially if you weren't going to use those points anyway. Sure, NerdWallet can recommend that you save your points if you know you're going to travel at that same hotel brand in the future, or you're saving up for a specific redemption on a trip you know you're going to take. But if you're not sure when you're going to use those points in the future, it's almost always better to spend them down even if you got a bad redemption and save your cash because your cash is way more fungible. The quest to understand your points and miles can be complicated. NerdWallet does its best to find the value out for you and to illuminate it by putting together calculators and tables to help you understand that. I spend my all day doing that for you. But the reality is there is no right way to truly understand the value of your points and miles because everyone has their own interpretation of what they're worth. Really, the only thing that I can advise you to do is, in general, spend down those points. Save your cash for all the other things you can use them for, and use those points and miles to book travel. I'm Sally French, a travel writer at NerdWallet. You know how I mentioned how easy it is to get Hilton points? Well, I've got a whole other video all about Hilton, more specifically comparing it to another program, Marriott Bonvoy. Watch that video and others, and if you want more, please make sure to like and subscribe.